Okay, so we'll just start. So this is week 5 of Bio 5.1 Genetics. We've come to the chapter 2, Heredity and Phenotypes, topic for Mendelian Genetics. So I will conduct this in 2 sessions. One is the law of segregation, and then we'll have perhaps a 10 minutes break in between before we go to the second part. Okay, so first one, law of segregation. Okay, so firstly kita akan pergi to Mendelian Genetics 1, monohybrid cross. For this lesson, the learning outcome, you should be able to describe explanations for inheritance prior to Mendel. Gerak tak you punya? Dekat you punya. Dekat I punya dia tak gerak ni. Tak gerak eh?
Tak bergerak.
Okay, sorry. So the second lesson learning outcome is to evaluate the outcome of monohybrid cross. And then you'll have to be able to explain Mendel's principle of segregation, compare the segregation of alleles with the behavior of homologs in meiosis, and you'll have to be able to state and define all the terms used in genetics. Okay, so remember this topic will come up in your test 1. Kena fokus lebih sikit lah. Okay. So before Mendel, what genetic principles account for the transmission of such traits from parents to offspring? Ni before Mendel punya teori. So they have the blending hypothesis of inheritance. And what is it? So in the early 1800s, the blending hypothesis was proposed. It is the idea that genetic material contributed by the two parents mixes in a manner analogous to the way blue and yellow paints blend to make green. So macam the blending hypothesis ni is that the hypothesis is that you blend from both parents. You are the blend of both parents. Maknanya kalau parents you biru, mak you biru, ayah you kuning, you nanti keluar jadi hijau. So itu dia punya, itu blending hypothesis of inheritance. Maknanya dia blend both sides to make one thing. So what would happen if this was the case? You rasa apa dia punya consequences dia kalau blending hypothesis ni is true? So nanti kalau katalah you are supposed to be green sebab your parents seorang blue, seorang yellow. Tiba-tiba you jadi warna biru je pula. So if this blending hypothesis is true, then takut nanti you jadi mangsa fitnah, nanti you bukan anak parents you kan, sebab you are supposed to be green, but why are you turning blue macam tu. So this was the original hypothesis in the 1800s. And then come the particulate hypothesis of inheritance. So what is this? The particulate hypothesis is the idea that parents pass on discrete heritable units. And now we call it genes. Tapi at that time they don't know what it is, so they just sebut units. And this is discovered by Mendel. So Mendel documented a particulate mechanism through his experiments with garden peas. Ni kita akan tengok banyak lah piece ni lepas ni, contoh-contoh dia. Okay, so the key difference between blending hypothesis tadi, so in blending inheritance, offspring is the blend of both parents. So macam parents you, dia masukkan dalam blender macam tu lah, dia blend and then keluar you gabungan halia dan cili macam tu. So That's blending. Maksudnya blend daripada dua-dua parents. Jadi satu benda yang baru. However, in particular inheritance, offspring is a combination of both parents. So it could be, mungkin you punya mata ikut mak, mungkin hidung ikut ayah. So not necessarily macam kalau hidung mak you mancung, hidung ayah you penyek, so you punya hidung kena tengah-tengah antara penyek dengan mancung. So that's what blending inheritance is. In particular inheritance, it could be a combination of both parents. Dia bukan blend. So dia asing-asing. Okay, faham ke?
Faham, Madam?
Okay. So now we move on to the Mendel and the laws of inheritance. So this Gregor Johann Mendel, we called him the father of genetics. He's actually an Austrian monk and conducted landmark studies from 1856 to 1864. He made thousands of crosses. Ni crosses bukan crosses salib, ni crosses hybridization lah. So, and then he kept meticulously accurate records that included quantitative analysis, experiments on plants hybrids. So, each of his experiments, he kept a meticulous accurate records so that orang tak boleh petikai lah dia punya result because dia memang record each and everything. Okay, so what is the law of segregation? So the law of segregation ni applied to monohybrid. So Mendel chose pea plants as his experimental organism. So for hybridization, it is the mating or crossing between two individuals that have different characteristics. So Mendel ni dia hybridkan two plants that have different characteristics. So now it's the purple flowered plant, and then dia kacukkan dengan white flowered plant. What is hybrids? Hybrids ni the offspring that result from such a mating. So hybrids ni adalah hasil daripada proses hybridization. It is presumed to be a blending of the parent traits. Hybrids ni, and it is often observed to be different than either parent. So hybrids ni sebab kita dah kacukkan between different characteristics. So sometimes it is observed, it is often observed to be different daripada dua-dua parent. So Mendel observed them to be like one of the parents with respect to some traits, no blending. So Mendel nampak the offspring is like one of the parents, no blending. Maksudnya kalau parent dia satu purple flowered, satu white flowered, so anak-anak dia either purple atau white. Tak ada pula jadi warna lavender ke lilac ke, dia tak blend dia either one. So why Mendel choose peas? Because advantages of pea plants for genetic study ni, there are many varieties with distinct heritable features or characters. So ada banyak variety pada peas ni, senang untuk kita tengok, such as the flower colour and character variants such as purple or white flowers are called traits. And then because mating of plants can be controlled. Sebab bila you tanam pokok tu dia duduk kat situ, dia tak pergi berlari ke sana, dia tak pergi berlari ke rumah jiran ke mana-mana. So it can be controlled lah macam mana dia nak kawal. Kalau you nak cuba buat kat dalam kucing, memang payah lah macam mana you nak control dia kan. So plants can be controlled. The mating of plants can be controlled. And then each pea plant has sperm-producing organs, we call it stamens, and egg-producing organs, and we call it carpels. So senang kita nak kacukkan. So cross-pollination, fertilization between different plants, can be achieved by dusting one plant with pollen from another. So macam senang je dia nak cross-pollinate, dia just dust the plant dengan pollen of the another plant. So that's why Mendel choose peas. Okay, so this is how he do it. So mula-mula from the parent, he remove the stamens from purple flower and then transfer the pollen from stamens of white flower to the stigma of a purple flower. So dia removekan yang stamens ni daripada purple flower, so dia masukkan yang pollen from white flower. And then cross-pollinated flower form seeds. Okay, dia lepas dia dah pollinate, dia akan bentuk seeds lah. So plant seeds from pot ni akan ditanam. So all of this dia akan tanam to see the offspring. So this is the first generation offspring. So Mendel studied 7 traits that bred through. The morphological characteristics of an organism are termed characters or traits. Okay, so morphological, sesuatu yang berubah. Morphological characteristics of an organism are termed characters or traits, something yang kita nampak. A variety that produces the same trait over and over again is termed a true breeder. So kalau you nampak true breeder ni, it means that variety, that organism, dia dominant lah. Dia akan produce the same trait generations after generations. Akan sama je trait dia. So kita panggil dia true breeder. Okay ke so far? Am I going too fast? Boleh follow?
Boleh, Madam.
Boleh? I tak nampak muka you all lah. Okay, so ada 7 traits Mendel examined in process. So the first one is the flower color. Ada purple and ada white. And then there's the flower position. Ada flower position dekat axial, yang dekat terminal. And there's also seed color, yellow and green. There's also seed shape, round and wrinkled. Pod shape pun ada, inflated and constricted. Pod color, green or yellow. And height, whether it is tall or dwarf. Okay, so these are the 7 traits that Mendel examined in process. Okay, so true breeding. Mendel used varieties that were true breeding, which means that plants that produce offspring of the same variety when they self-pollinate. So yang true breeding ni, bila dia self-pollinate, dia akan produce the same traits juga. Macam ni, yellow dia punya pot, dia punya seed. So anak-anak dia semua yellow juga. Meanwhile yang green, bila dia pollinate, anak-anak dia memang semua green juga. So true breeding plants trait did not vary in appearance from generation to generation. So ni true breeding maksudnya dia cuma breed sesama dia je. Dia breed sesama dia, lepas tu bila melahirkan dia punya offspring tu nanti sama juga dengan dia. Dia punya trait semua sama. If they were to be self-fertilized, all of their offspring would also produce the same trait. So ini adalah true breed plants. So Mendel's experiments, he crossed 2 variants differing in only 1 trait. So ini yang kita katakan monohybrid cross. Monohybrid cross. So only 1 trait. It will produce single trait hybrids, which we call monohybrids. Okay, so for each 7 traits, Mendel cross-fertilized 2 different true breeding lines. Okay, so maksudnya untuk monohybrid dia memang dia tengok only 1 characteristic. So this one dia tengok either it is tall or dwarf. So this is called the parental cross, the P plants. P stands for parent lah. Okay, so the P cross produces seeds that are part of the F1 generation. So lepas dia dah self-fertilize sesama tall dengan dwarf ni, so dia akan dapat dia punya seeds. Yang ni kita namakan F1 lah. So the first generation daripada pollinization yang ni. And then from the F1 seeds ni, dia collect many seeds. And then dia plant the seeds yang daripada F1 ni. Dia plant. Dia apa ni self-fertilize sesama the F1 plants. And then it will produce seeds that are part of the F2 generation. So bila F1 ni dia dah self-fertilize, so dia akan dapat F2 punya seeds lah. So F2 punya seeds ni ditanam and then akan dapat F2 punya generation. So what Mendel sees is that ada tall, ada dwarf, ada tall. So in the F1 punya seeds, semua tall. Tapi bila dekat F2, ada 3 tall tapi ada 1 dwarf. So as the conceptual level, kita bayangkan dia punya genes. Sebab kalau true breed, selalunya dia akan homozygous dominant. Kalau yang tall ni dominant, yang dwarf ni recessive. You all dah belajar ke recessive dominant? Sepatutnya dah tahu dah kan? Kalau dominant, it will always dominate lah against recessive. Dia akan dia akan suppress yang recessive. So, kalau yang F1 punya seeds, dominant ni dia memang akan suppress yang recessive. So, all yang F1 punya seeds dia memang akan dapat yang tall sahaja. Sebab akan ada allele dominant kat sini. Meanwhile, for the F1 punya plants, sebab semua dah dapat heterozygous punya allele from the parents, from the F1 parents. So, dia dah jadi heterozygous. Tapi karakteristik dia masih tall kan sebab yang dominan ni ada. Bila dominan ada, yang dwarf ni memang dia akan ditindas. So F1 memang semua tall. Tapi bila kita self-pollinate F1 dua-dua ni, dia akan jadi ada yang dapat T besar, ada yang dapat 2. Ada 2 yang dapat T besar dan T kecil dan ada satu lagi dapat T kecil. Ni nanti kita tengok in more detail. So, sebab tu kita dapat yang T besar ni dia akan jadi tall lah. So, ada 1, sini ada 2. So, ada 3. So, yang ni ada dwarf. Dwarf ada 1. We'll see more examples after this. Okay. Right. So, this is the result for 7 characters in P plants. So, the dominant trait semua yang belah sini, yang ini recessive trait. So, on flower colour, purple cross-pollinate dengan white, dia dapat macam ni. Dia punya ratio 705/224. So, bila kira-kira about 3:1 lah ratio. And then flower position pun ratio about 3:1. This one pun 3:1. Ni pun 3:1, 3:1, 3:1. So all the 7 characters ni, dia dapat ratio semua 3:1. So how do we interpret this data? So for all 7 traits studied, the F1 generation showed only one of the 2 parental traits. So yang F1 dia memang ikut yang dominant sahaja. Meanwhile, the F2 generation showed a 3:1 ratio of the 2 parental traits. So bila dah F2 generation dah ada gabungan dah. Ada yang ikut ayah, ada yang ikut mak. So these results refuted a blending mechanism of heredity. Sebab kalau blending mechanism tadi maksudnya dia blendkan dua-dua kan. So kalau tall and dwarf, so it's supposed to be what medium macam tu. Kalau ikut blending punya ni lah, blending punya hypothesis tadi. But then because of Mendel's punya experiments ni, it refuted the blending mechanism of heredity. So the data suggested a particulate theory of inheritance. And Mendel postulated the law of segregation based on what he found. A pea plant contains two discrete hereditary factors, one from each parent. The two factors, it may be identical or different. And then when the two factors of a single trait are different, one is dominant and its effect can be seen, the other is recessive and is masked. So, yang dominant memang akan selalu nampak dan dia akan repress yang recessive. So, during gametogenesis in meiosis, the paired factors segregate randomly so that half of the gametes received one factor and half of the gametes received the other. So, during meiosis kan dia pembahagian kan. So, the paired factors segregate randomly, secara random. So, kita tak tahu dia akan dapat yang dominant ke, akan dapat yang recessive ke, it is random. So, half of the gametes receive one factor and half of the gametes receive the other. So, this is the basis of Mendel's law of segregation. Maksudnya, gametes we will receive one factor from one of our parents and the other half is from the other parent.